Chef Rob's back. Let's cook lunch.
All right, all right, all right, all right. Lunchtime. I'm cooking a steak for lunch today. Gone to the butcher, bought my steak. Delicious. 300-gram rump steak. Lots of people over my years of cooking have asked how to cook a good steak. And there's lots of tips and tricks. People will teach you lots of tips and things. People will say, this is the best way to do it. This is how I do it. This is the way I got taught. This is whatever insert name a famous chef says. I'm going to show you what I do and what it does to make a better steak. I'm going to go ahead and say I've got, we can count them, 10 tricks, 10 1%ers, if you will, that will make a better steak without you having to spend hundreds of dollars. Let's start with the steak. Make sure you're picking a cut that is good for cooking as a steak. Like, you don't want big chunks of sinew through it. Fat is fine, but we don't want sinew running through the steak. We don't want anything like gristly or chewy that's going to make for an unpleasant mouthfeel later on. So this is a rump steak. You can use things like Scotch fillet, porterhouse, eye fillet, tri-tip. There, oh, so you can cut steaks off the oyster, even off the leg, like some leg cuts as well, make for good steaks. I've used topside. What makes a good steak for you is up to you. I like quite a bit of fat on my steak. Like, I like that flavor that fat brings to me. I don't want it too lean, so I don't often eat eye fillet. I find it boring. I prefer a Scotch fillet or a ribeye or a rump steak. What you're looking for in the steak itself is the color of the fat. You want like a nice white color to the fat. You don't want it to be yellowed or gray. The brighter the white, the fresher that cut is, and also the better the life the cow's had as well. We don't want those like horrible grays and yellows. That usually means a poor diet or high stress life. Things like high cortisol and stuff in the meat, which is going to come out in the flavor. Try and get it from a butcher as well if you can. If you like, usually it's a little bit more expensive going to a butcher compared to your groceries like your Woolies or your Coles, but at least then you're going to have a nicer steak. They're going to get a better quality. They're going to treat it nicer. Woolies, Coles, that kind of, like, they're pumping out thousands of items. They want to make sure they're doing their job quickly. You're not going to have the same treatment of the animal and of the meat. So let's get good quality piece of meat from a good butcher. Secondly, what we're going to do is two things at once. They're going to increase the 1%ers. We're going to look at how we season the steak and then also the temperature of the steak before we cook it. So what we're going to do with our steak is we're going to season it just with salt, because we don't want to put pepper on it just yet. And I'll explain why later. But we're going to pat it dry, get all that like residual meat juices off it, and we just want it nice and dry. I'm going to chuck that out later. I'll just chuck it now. Pop that on a wire rack, and then we're going to season with salt on both sides. Now, red meats like beef and lamb can take quite a bit of salt, so don't be too scared to give it quite a bit. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to leave this now to come to room temperature. We don't want to try and cook a steak from cold, because what you're trying to do to get that different cooking level of your meat is bring the internal temperature up. If you're doing that from 5 degrees in the fridge, it's just going to make it a tougher job to get that internal temperature where we want it without overcooking it or undercooking it. So season the meat, let it sit. That's going to help develop what we call the crust. When we sear the meat, it's going to help it be nice and crispy on the outside. So leave that. I would leave that for steak this size, maybe 15-20 minutes to come to temperature, so it's not too cold on the internal. This is going to be a fun episode because there's going to be a lot of me talking, which I find awkward. Lots of talking, not much doing, because cooking a steak only takes a couple of minutes. We are going to make a nice little sort of Korean inspired gochujang and soy sauce to finish it off with. So it's been 15 minutes. The steak's at room temperature now, or thereabouts. It's not fridge cold anymore. Now, what we're going to do is we're not putting pepper on this. I mentioned that before. Pepper, because it's got like little bits, it's like itty bitty little chunks, they burn in the hot oil, which creates an underlying acrid flavor, which we're trying to avoid. We want to just bring out all the beautiful flavors of the meat. So salt will enhance that without burning. Pepper burns. We don't want to put pepper on there. We'll finish with pepper. For now, salt only, and we're going to use an oil with a high smoke point. And I've got just it's some lard that we made, like whenever I get some pork product stuff, I cut trim fat off, I render my own fats. So this is some homemade lard. You can use anything that works for you, as long as it's got a high smoke point. Don't be using like seed oils or stuff like that that burn early. And there's nothing, I'm not saying, oh, don't use seed oils, they're bad for you. They probably aren't great for you, but we want, in this use of this pan's going to get really hot. So we're going to be bringing this oil to around 200 degrees, 220, maybe even a little bit higher. Oils with a low smoke point that burn easily are going to taste like shit. So we're going to get our lard, and we're just going to rub that into the meat on both sides. Rub that in there. We don't want to put the oil directly in the pan because that's going to bring it up too hot too quickly and again burn that oil. What we're going to do is heat our pan dry and then add our steak. That's going to help create that heat transfer directly into the meat. The oil will heat up incredibly quickly because it's only a very thin layer, and then that will allow us to develop that beautiful bark on the outside of the meat. Alrighty, so all our 1%ers we've talked about so far, things like where to get the steak from, how to season it, the oil we use, not peppering it too early. The pan is also important, another 1%er here. Don't just use a cheap Teflon coated pan, don't get it something thin. This pan is cast iron. It has a freaking solid base, like it is heavy duty pan here. So when it gets hot, it's going to stay hot. Because what we don't want to use is like a thin ceramic pan or something that when you get it really, really hot, get ready to sear your meat, put your steak in the pan, and then the pan goes cold, and we end up stewing that meat. That's what we don't want to do here. The plan here is to grill that meat, to really get the intense heat directly on the contact of the flesh. So let's crank this pan up. We're going to get quite hot pan. We're going to heat this pan until it is like white hot. You want to start seeing like white smoke coming off the pan. It needs to be hot. So I'm hoping we can see that in the camera. There's some haze now coming off the pan, like it's starting to rise up. I don't know. I hope you can see it. That tells me this pan is getting hotter and hotter, but still not hot enough. All right. You now see that pan. Oh, it's actually getting too hot for my induction. That's fun. Alrighty, so that pan's now smoking hot. I'm going to go in with our steak. So straight down the center of the pan. Next 1%er, the flipping. Many, many years ago, some famous chef said something about only flip a steak once. Crock of shit. You want to move the steak regularly. So every sort of 20, 30 seconds, give it a flip. What that's going to do is it's going to allow the heat to penetrate from both sides of the steak more evenly. You just let it cook through from one side, flip it, then let it cook through. If you've timed that flip wrong, your steak's going to be overcooked in the center or undercooked if you've underdone it. So flipping every 20, 30 seconds, or as is nicely timed by my cooker, this pan's so hot that it keeps shutting down the induction cooker. I'm just going to keep flipping this steak over and over again. And what you'll notice straight away, immediately, there's not much color developing on the steak. It's quite light. As we cook this more and more and keep flipping it over, it will develop more color as we go. So this pan's so hot it keeps shutting my induction cooktop off. I'm going to move my whole kitchen around to my gas burner over there and try again. We've moved. Same concept as before, flipping regularly to develop that heat transfer through to the center of the steak. I also like to put the steak, especially like a rump steak that has the fat cap on one side. I like to get that sort of seared off as well. Renders out some of that fat. Just makes it a little bit more palatable if you do eat that. Like some people cut it off. I prefer to eat it. May as well make it more delicious while I'm doing it. As you can see, we're now starting to get some more color on that steak. And that's the natural sugars in the meat, and they're what's called the Maillard reaction, where the sugars caramelize, and that creates like a nice sweetness within the meat. What we're looking for as well is that because of this cut of meat, it's got a nice fat cap on top. There's a bit of fat through it and some down here, but the actual meat itself is quite lean. So what I'm going to do is cook this to about a medium rare. And to check that, we're just going to touch the meat. It does hurt, it is a bit hot. What we're trying to make sure is that the meat's not too tough. There's the different parts of your hand here. This nice big fleshy bit. If your steak feels like that, it is still quite raw. But as you come further down this way, it tightens up a little bit. You're looking for a bit more resistance. Quite mushy is going to be very rare or raw. In here, you're looking at a nice medium to medium rare, and then obviously on the actual hard parts of your hand, it's well done. That is looking spot on for me and feels really nice as well. So I'm going to take that off the heat and we're going to rest that over back on the other side of the kitchen. Alrighty, we're back over here in the nicer part of the kitchen. This pan's off now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this pan to make my sauce. It's got all that beautiful meat flavor. Meat's now resting here. And we've got it back on that wire rack because we want that juice to come down onto the tray. We don't want it sitting in there stewing to allow it to stop cooking. So let's get some finely diced onion going on here. We're going to really quickly dice up about a quarter of an onion. If you've got a shallot, a shallot's nice too, but onion will work just fine for what we're doing. Alrighty, so we're going to pop that onion. This pan is off. There's the natural fats in the pan still. We're going to use those to cook the onion. We need to cool the pan down a bit though first, otherwise it'll burn. Make sure they're not sticking in there too much. Like I said, this pan is off right now. There's no heat in this pan. It's actually completely unplugged for now. Just to get the onions started, we'll add some heat in a minute once it's cooled down a touch. We don't want this to burn. What we are going to do while these onions are softening is just add some pepper to our steak. Some fresh grinds of pepper. This fresh pepper is delicious. All right, so this onion is pretty close to done. And like I said before, this sauce is kind of inspired a bit from sort of Korean barbecue. When you go there, if you've been there, you remember there's like dipping sauces and stuff for the meat. And one of the dipping sauces is a mix of like a miso paste. It's a soy bean paste and gochujang, which is a chili paste that made in South Korea. We're going to use those to make a yummy sauce to go with our steak. So I'm going to add some heat back into this pan now. We're just going to deglaze this pan with a little bit of mirin. Now the handle of this pan is now very hot from being over the burner before. So use a towel or something so you don't burn yourself. I'm also going to add just a touch of chicken stock to this. These are a chicken stock cube. I make fresh chicken stock, freeze it into an ice cube tray, and then whenever I need chicken stock, I'll just chuck it in. So I'm going to let these cook down. That'll defrost into the sauce, make it a little more liquid in there, because you can see it's quite jammy now. And once we've got a little bit more liquid in there, we're going to add our pastes. We don't want them to burn. So on our 1%ers of our steak, how to make it better. We've talked about the seasoning, the temperature, where to get the meat from. What we're doing here is resting the meat. When you heat meat, it contracts and shrinks up. And if you eat that straight away, that's going to be really, really tough and chewy. What this is doing, allowing the meat to literally rest, to sit down and chill out for a bit, is going to help relax those muscle fibers again. Alrighty, so that's now for the chicken stock. Also going to add any of the juices that have rested onto that tray, and then add our paste. This pan is just on a low heat. We don't need a lot of heat into this now because the pan itself is so hot. And all mixed in. Beautiful. I'm going to turn that off. Beautiful, jammy miso sauce. Alrighty. Last of our 10 tips I'm going to give now. So we've done steak, we've done seasoning, we've done the temperature, we've done the pan, we've done the oil, we've done pepper, we've done flipping it, we've done the color of the steak, we've done resting, slicing. We go to a fancy restaurant and you get your steak sliced. There's a reason that steak is being sliced on an angle. And that's because those fibers of meat we talked about before contracting, those fibers run directly through this muscle. And you can see, if you look at the meat, you can see the directions of the fibers are going into the meat this way. What we want to do is cross-section those a little bit so when you chew it, the meat naturally falls apart. So what we're going to do is slice on an angle this way. And that's not just to look fancy and make the steak look bigger on the plate, which it will do as well. It's actually to help with the first part of digestion, which is chewing. There, beautiful. Slide that under. Pop on your plate and then give it a little fan out, and you'll see that beautiful blushing pink there. Beautiful medium to medium rare there. So that's cooked perfectly. Fan that out because I want the sauce all through those layers. I'm just going to drizzle this beautiful jammy sauce all over that steak. And that will be nice with any kind of salad, any kind of vegetable. That's just a beautiful, perfectly cooked, delightfully rested, seasoned steak. Enjoy.